Shift our attention over to Russia. Rushing to establish itself as a major player in race for the coronavirus vaccine, Russia has now approved a second COVID-19 vaccine developed by Siberia's Vector Institute. The new vaccine, named Epivac Corona, completed early-stage trials last month. Russia has given official approval to its COVID-19 vaccines without waiting for the results of large-scale trials in thousands of patients, which means the approval has come in after preliminary trials itself. Large-scale trials are normally required to prove that a drug is safe and effective. That decision has been criticized by scientists and others as well. According to Russian officials, first trials of the vaccine on 100 volunteers was successful, and post-registration trials of Epivac Corona would count 40,000 volunteers across the entire country. President Vladimir Putin said that the country needs to increase production of the first and second vaccine as Russia continues to cooperate with foreign partners to promote its vaccine abroad.
Нужно наращивать сейчас производство и первой нашей вакцины, и вот сейчас второй вакцины. И, конечно, прежде всего нужно обеспечить российский рынок этими препаратами. Они должны поступать в аптечную сеть России как можно шире. Мы продолжаем сотрудничество с нашими иностранными партнерами и будем продвигать нашу вакцину.
Russia became the first country to officially approve a vaccine when it did so for the Sputnik V in August. The international scientific community was skeptical about the doses that have been studied for just 2 months in a few dozen people. So far, neither vaccine is in general circulation. Meanwhile, Russia has seen a sharp resurgence in coronavirus infections as cold weather has also returned. It has been reporting a record daily increase in coronavirus cases. Yet, the authorities have so far been reluctant to return to lockdown measures. Schools in the capital have been shut for the past 2 weeks to limit the spread of the virus. For more details, let's quickly go across to Galina Polonskaya, who's joining us live from Moscow with the latest developments on the vaccine story. Thank you for joining our broadcast, Galina. Let's just start by what the scientists have to say. What are scientists saying about giving regulatory approval to the second vaccine after early stage studies? What does it speak of its safety?
Well, actually, the science here in Russia as well as abroad are quite skeptical about those shortcuts that Russia is taking, because this vaccine, which is called Epivac Corona, is registered just at the very early stage of the clinical trials, and it was announced by Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, in person. He said that the vaccine was safe, but however, we know that only 100 people took part in the first stage of trials. So for the scientific society, it is a very, very worrying signal, because they say that it is too dangerous to start registering vaccines without large-scale clinical trials. But Vladimir Putin precised that the deputy prime minister as well as the head of the Russia sanitary watchdog have already been vaccinated with this vaccine, which is described as a peptide-based shot, and that they are feeling good, and the authorities say that this vaccine is better for older, those who have some chronic diseases, and that 60,000 doses will be produced shortly.
So, going by what information you're sharing, it seems to be certainly more effective since it will be addressing patients with underlying diseases. Having said that, Galina, is mass production of the Russian vaccine, including Sputnik V, is it proving to be a huge hurdle for Russia?
Well, actually, Russia says that the first vaccine, Vector, is going to be released in wide public as early as at the end of this month, or maybe at the beginning of the next month. So the mass production has started after the registration in Russia, and Russia is also trying to persuade the other countries to take part in those third phases of trials of both vaccines right now, and there is another one, the third one, which will be announced very briefly and registered according to the Russian president. So for Russia, Russia insists that this is very important in the times of the pandemic to find some other ways of creating the vaccines, and thinks that it is normal to start the mass production at this particular moment at the very early stages.
Right. But Galina, having said that, since you mentioned the third vaccine, Russia is, of course, expected to approve a third vaccine later this year. What explains the country's rush to win the vaccine race?
Well, actually, you know, Russia is the fourth most affected by the COVID-19 cases country in the world. And in the recent week, Russia broke a record of the new cases and the new deaths. Today, actually, is the record-breaking sad day. There are 286 people died, and it's the biggest number, actually, but the Moscow authorities, and here we have the most number of cases, do not want to start another lockdown. And the President Vladimir Putin also said that, so what they say actually, that it is better to start vaccinating the population than to start a lockdown that could influence businesses. Here, however, there is a lot of skepticism. For example, the teachers are very concerned, and there was even an online petition of a teachers union that urges not to start this vaccination in Russia until it is proven that the vaccine, the first one, Sputnik V, is safe.
Right, absolutely. And outside Russia, it's also a matter of diplomacy when it comes to providing the vaccine, since Russia has already promised India, Mexico and Brazil. So thank you so much for bringing us all those details.